like on fight day, they're knocking on my door, and they come to the door, and I'm like, what do you just tell them to piss off? Like, I want to sleep, and I'll have the fight. The next minute, like, more of them came back for the boss, and they're like, you got to go to the embassy. And I was like, nah, I got a visa. And they're like, no, the police know you guys are here fighting for cash. You need like a working visa. Fuck. So it was like 2 PM. So they drove us to the embassy. So it's like now 3 o'clock. And then we had to wait at the embassy for like an hour and a bit. Finally got these visas. They drove us back to the hotel. They were like, oh, you got to go to the fight in like 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, can we eat? Because like we haven't eaten today. They were like, yeah. So they bring out this big ass bowl of like fried rice. And they're like, yeah, just eat that. And then they just took us to the fight.
Okay, welcome to Fruiting Body Podcast with your host, Brendan. Fruiting Body is a medicinal mushroom company located on the island of Phuket. We got a last-minute guest, but an absolute legend. It is Brad Riddell. He is a longtime veteran of the island of Phuket, training over at Tiger Muay Thai, but now he's at, well, his home gym, City Kickboxing in New Zealand. Today, we're going to be talking more about Brad and his journey from New Zealand over to Thailand, and we're going to focus more on that part of the story. It's going to be a quick one. We're guessing about less than 30 minutes. So let's get it started right away. So without further ado, here's Brad Riddell.
Good to be here. Where did the name come from? Fruiting Body.
So Fruiting Body it's the technical term for the mushroom when it's fully developed.
Okay.
So there's different like life cycles. I'll turn that off in a second. There's different life cycles in the mushroom's development. And the final of the mushroom's life cycle is the fruiting body.
Okay.
We took it, I came up with this idea because all the competitors on their website, when they sell this type of product, they have to say we sell 100% fruiting body. So I'm trying to be like the Kleenex of tissue paper of the fruiting body of the mushroom industry. And I've had competitors, and I trademarked it in the US, and people like reach out to me after, they're like, how the fuck did you trademark that? I'm like, it's too late now, buddy.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
Anyways.
that was smart.
Yeah. A bit sneaky.
That was real good.
We'll run with it. So we'll get it started. Again, this is kind of it is a Thailand-based podcast. Let's just walk us through your story of getting started into MMA, and let's go back to the time, the earthquake in Christchurch, which basically shook it all up.
Yep, that was a while ago now.
2011, probably.
Yeah, so I came to Thailand before that for a couple of months, like my first year out of school, and then like everybody, I was like, I need to go back there, need to find a way back, right? So. And like everybody, back then I sort of ran out of money, so I had to go home and work. So I went home. While I was over here, there was an earthquake, and I didn't really, understand the gravity of it at the time, because we'd never had earthquakes. So I had nothing to compare to. So my parents and stuff were like, oh, it's really bad. It's damaged the city. So some people have died. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then so I went home, and then I experienced like a bigger one when I was there. I was like, holy shit, like it knocked me off my feet, like blew all the windows out of my building, like the water exploded up out of the pool, like 15 feet out of the pool. Jesus Christ. And I was like shaking, and I was on the ground like bouncing around, and like then it stopped, and it was just like smoke and, collapsed like building and dust and alarms going off, and I was like, man, this is crazy. And so that happened, and I moved to Auckland. Because our company moved, or like the hotel we worked in put all the staff, like relocated them, and if you wanted to, you could move. So I was like, I'm gonna move. There's not too much going on down here for me, and I ended up in Auckland at a gym called Liga, and did well up there fighting, and then I made my way to China.
Yeah, we have a similar experience. I heard a couple stories where you're, maybe you can share that story when you were in China, and you were on tourist visas, but the police came to your hotel room.
Oh yes. So that wasn't when I was living there. So at that time I was living here, and I went over to have a fight with Kunlun. I think it was Kunlun, and I took Woody with me I always used to take Woody with me to corner me, even though he didn't like have any fight experience. It was like more just having like someone funny around, made me fight better. So I took Woody, and man, like the hotel that sponsored the fight was like an hour out of Beijing, but we were fighting in Beijing, so we had to keep doing these like massive drives. And one day, like on fight day, they're knocking on my door, and they come to the door, and I'm like, Woody, just tell them to piss off. Like I want to sleep, and I'll have the fight. Tell them to leave. So he told them to leave. Next minute, like more of them came back for the boss, and they're like, you've got to go. You got to go to the embassy, like, and get a visa. I was like, nah, I got a visa. And they're like, no, the police know you guys are here fighting for cash. You need like a work permit, like a working visa. I was like, fuck. So it was like 2 PM. So they drove us to the embassy. So it's like now 3 o'clock. And then we had to wait at the embassy for like an hour and a bit. Finally got these visas. They drove us back to the hotel. And they were like, oh, you got to go to the fight in like 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, can we eat? Because like we haven't eaten today. And they were like, yeah. So they bring out this big ass bowl of like fried rice. And they're like, yeah, just eat that. And then they just took us to the fight. And
yeah, and Chinese food.
And they turned up at the... the police all turned up at the immigration, turned up at the fight and checked all our passports and everything.
Yeah, especially when you're out there, the Chinese food. Well, I was okay because I was in Shenzhen, so we had Western food. But I have some buddies that live there, and kind of we have a joke. It's like we basically had diarrhea for 6 years.
Yeah, man.
It's like just shit in your pants all the time.
I made beelines for like Macca's or anything like Western. That's like I would make weight and then I'd just like fuel up on Macca's, KFC, Pizza Hut.
Yeah, Pizza Hut.
It was the only place in the world I could swear I could find Pizza Hut anymore after a while. It was China.
Man, I lived off Pizza Hut, especially like, man, nights out drinking and like you needed pizza and like that's all you had. But that Pizza Hut pizza, like if you don't eat it when it's hot and it turns cold, it just literally turns into a brick.
It's like chewing this couch.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's terrible. So were you actually living in China before that?
Not really living. I wasn't there long enough to like class it as living, I'd say. I was there it was supposed to be a year. And I got there and I was there 2 months and I was like, I am out of here. This is terrible. They're like, we were in Jingzhou, like mainland China.
Yeah.
Zheng. Zhengzhou.
Oh, Zhengzhou.
I think it's like Zhengzhou or something, yeah. And
I like how you throw that accent on there.
Bro, it was horrible. Yeah. It was horrible. It was like, again, terrible city, but then hour and a half drive out into the countryside through like all these fish farms. Yeah. And then this like big abandoned hotel that has been turned into a gym with like dormitories. And so that's where we were.
Yeah, because
there's Wi-Fi in like one corner of the place and like the boss's room, but you weren't allowed there.
The pay, it was good for fighters at that time in China. Like I know a lot.
Oh,
like,
fuck yeah, man.
Like if you're doing even Muay Thai, guys like, would you know like Eddie Farrell?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys like that, they would be going out to China because you're getting paid way more than doing it here.
China, like, as much shit I talk on it, like, it gave me the opportunity to live as like a full-time fighter, like as a professional fighter, because like without them, you'd be getting paid shit here at the stadiums and just being ripped off everywhere. But I had like a pretty good contract with the Chinese, so I could live in Auckland. Like I made enough to live in Auckland and fight. And then obviously if I made enough to live in Auckland and just fighting and living here was sweet, right? And then I was working as well at Tiger. So it was good for me. It was good for me, man.
I read you got upwards of like 58 fights. Now, was this strictly in like kickboxing and Muay Thai?
Yeah, that was like kickboxing and Muay Thai. So I accumulated a lot of fights earlier in my career through tournaments, just doing like 8-mans and 4-mans. I've done like three or four 4-mans. I've done 4 8-mans. So I mean that's racking up fights, man. Like you fight 3 times in one night, and I've done like 4 of them. That's 12 fights, and then chuck on the 4-mans.
How do you get through with the leg kicks? Because I mean, I used to do Muay Thai. I probably had about 3 years of Muay Thai from sparring, and like sometimes you take a wicked one across the quad, and like you could be crippled for a week.
Yeah, it's it sucks. Like it's sometimes you can come out of an 8-man pretty like unscathed. Sometimes you can get through the first guy quick, second guy quick, third guy can be hard, but like you're at the end anyway, so just get into it. But I've done one 8-man where I did an extra round every single fight. So I did 4 rounds 3 times that night. So I did 12 rounds in one night. I was really sore the next day. Like, I was like a balloon just swollen up. My ankles were like from kicking. And it was like, it takes like a little bit of fortitude, mental fortitude to like get up and go out to the next fight every time, especially if you sit there and relax for a bit and then all the pain starts to kick in, or like a bit of relaxation.
Well, I read you broke your leg when you were younger and kind of you didn't have feeling in one of the legs, so that's kind of an advantage for a Muay Thai. Is the leg still like that, or is that is that a well-known fact that your fighter, the people studying you would know about?
Nah, so like I don't know, like maybe I broke my ankle, but so it's like got filled up with like some plates and screws and stuff, and then like just a massive amount of feeling lifted, I guess, like up the shin and stuff, just because it completely snapped, and then like the bones all fused around the steel and stuff. So I guess it sort of became like Ironman, that leg, and a lot of the sensitivities left. So yeah, I can like belt my left leg in pretty good and over. And
you like most Muay Thai fighters, and especially in
definitely
Thailand.
helps blocking low kicks, because like I can block a lot of them and just worry about the pain later.
Were you fighting any Thai guys as well?
I fought some Thais. The Thais were actually they were like my Boogey Men. Yeah, like every time I ended up fighting a Thai, I had like a really tricky, difficult fight, and I lost a couple against them, and I won a couple against the Thais. But yeah, every time I had a fight with a Thai, it was always tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I could never, and I would never want to understand at that level. I've training Muay Thai here, always like, the guy coaching me, they want to push you to go to Patong. I'm like, but I don't have health insurance. What happens when he snaps my jaw?
That's
like,
it, bro. Yeah.
Like it's nothing to make the money, maybe the experience, but like, I mean, I'm not getting an orbital bone fracture for what? And what's the point? Yeah, and those Thai guys, I mean, you watch them as kids and conditioning their shins. I mean, they're probably just as strong as that bat you're holding.
Oh, for sure. Like after a certain amount of fights, like you can't deny that. I don't think they're like purposely belt their shins and stuff, but just after like accumulative damage from them and just kicking each other and kicking their bag all the time, and it just becomes like desensitized, right?
Do you think like foreigners could ever like reach that level of like shin durability?
Oh, of course. Like I'm sure Izzy's got pretty goddamn hard shins, man. Like he's had a hell of a lot of fights and he kicks a lot, so his are definitely probably harder than the average Joe's. I think it's, if anyone starts at that age, you're going to end up with, like, that's when your body's like forming and growing. Right. So you're just callousing it. You're just callousing it from a child up. Yeah,
these kids, I'll see them, they're running around the back street. There's a gym here called Revolution, and Sutai is over there. And these kids are like maybe 5 or 6. I mean, they're running maybe 10K a day. I mean,
yeah, the monsters, huh?
Monsters. But it's
monsters, eh?
it's a bit. We were starting up a Muay Thai foundation. That's kind of something I have on the side that I want to get to. I can't do everything, but the reality is they're coming from Isan and they're fighting here to basically give money back home to feed the family.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. Yeah. So I guess in Thailand, a lot of the time, kids sort of sometimes get the choice or don't, whether to go to school, pursue an education, or get money now and fight and just send it home and make money that way. And then, they retire relatively early, a lot of them, and become trainers.
Yep.
So it's like security. I guess it's like security and having that income and all that time.
Yeah, we saw them, and that's kind of when I started it during COVID time. I was over here. I said, well, what are the kids doing? They're not fighting. And honestly, they're fishing.
Yeah.
Fishing for food.
Yeah. It would have been rough, man, like for sure.
Yeah, and some of them will come from these Bangtao communities over here, and they'd be fishing, and the dad would be trying to get some sort of job, but they're literally fishing for dinner.
Yeah.
It was really sad, and we tried to raise a little bit of money and do what we could do, but I mean, that time was pretty rough.
It's, I guess, like, I mean, been in a third world country, right, the reality of life is a little bit different. Yeah. Like compared to people like us, right? The government like gives us money, and in our country, the government was like giving out money to like sort of cushion the blow that they made on the economy and the effect on other people's lives. But like over here, that's non-existent.
Yeah, I mean they didn't. it didn't last that long. And there was a point where like I had friends that I've known in Thailand, Thai friends for a while, and they would ask for money. And I'd send 1,000 here or there when I could. Yeah. I mean, otherwise I don't think they would reach out. And these aren't the Thai stories of send me 10,000 baht.
Yeah.
And you never see it again. They're legit like asking, hey, can you send me 1,000 baht here or there?
Yeah.
As you, we'll get past the sob stories and stuff like that. As you moved up in the rankings in city kickboxing, and you're moving Eugene was kind of holding you back before you came into MMA officially. That whole brotherhood over at City Kickboxing, can you talk about that a bit? And just before that, I was watching one of your vlogs today, and it kind of reminded me of the lifestyle of a firefighter. And I read your dad was a firefighter. Is there a connection there as like the community of especially with City Kickboxing gym?
I've never really thought about it like that, to be honest. I know my dad, I guess, as they were younger, and a lot of the guys he's worked with for like 30 plus years, I'm sure they had like a very tight knit community there, especially if you're like running into blazing buildings with your mates. It's like it's a little bit of a different bond to what we have. I think we're not like risking our lives, in my opinion.
I mean more from the perspective of you're going through the facility and you're showing like, hey, these are the lockers, this is where we cook, this is the gym, which is very similar to a fire hall where
I get you. Okay, now I get you. I was like, I can't really compare being a firefighter to a fighter.
I meant more like the brotherhood within, like, let's say it's I don't want to call it a dojo, but like within that facility, when I saw that, it kind of clicked.
Oh, okay. So you're like talking about the COVID vlog where we like got locked in the gym for a while?
Exactly.
Yeah. It was different. It was it's like a lot of people that haven't lived with each other before. I mean, it was only a short period of time, like 2 weeks, and then like a confined space, like 2 days stuff can be very different 2 days later, right? But once you discover people's habits and good habits and bad habits and stuff like that, but yeah, it was pretty easy for that place to run smooth because of like Eugene's there, right? He's like the enforcer. So if something's sort of not being done right, or someone's not cleaning up or something like that, like we didn't really have to deal with it. Like everyone just did it because they were like, I don't want to have to deal with like Eugene making us train more or some sort of repercussion for doing that.
What is kind of Eugene's, when you look up, if you're to define him and look up to him, what is his role within City Kickboxing? I mean, he's wearing many hats, owner, friend, coach.
Yeah, he definitely wears many hats, especially now. There's like a lot of people that come through the gym from different walks of life. So he's got like a lot of different responsibilities with different fighters, like some people he just has to coach how to fight. And that's the end of it, right? That's the relationship. Some people I guess he spends time with outside of the gym, like they're more of a coach friendship relationship. And then there's people that come in that are like a bit of a lost cause. They need like a little bit of direction in life, and they make mistakes outside of the gym that he has like helped them fix stuff outside of the gym. So he does everything, man. Like he's like someone you can if you really need it, you can turn to for some help. But I guess like I said, all the different people that have come to the gym have like caused him to have to put on many different hats.
I had a conversation 2 days ago with Syed. He was on the podcast, and I kind of related this also to City Kickboxing in the sense that I said, Syed, like the way you came up, you kind of came up with your whole team. Like all these guys that came up, Petrian, Fazeev, all Ironman, all these guys that are under him, you kind of grew together instead of, getting them already at the top. And that's kind of a similar story with Eugene, yourself, and Kai Kara France and Izzy over at the gym. Is that a fair statement to make, as like you guys kind of, especially with Izzy entering the UFC in 2018 and then all coming up together and, growing as one?
Yeah, we slight accurate and also inaccurate. So a few of us are like imports, right? Like we're not at CKB from day one. For instance, I'm not. I was at like Liga. I was at like a Muay Thai gym. And I used to go to City Kickboxing a couple of times a week in the morning when I was younger and do conditioning with Huge. And sometimes I would go there and spar at his gym. and sometimes he would bring some guys up to our gym and spar. So I met them early, but he didn't coach me earlier on. And like Kai was at a different gym, Dang was at a different gym. The guys that have been with him since they knew nothing was like Israel and Blood Diamond. And then the majority of our fight team, we all came to him later in our careers. Most of our fight team have actually fought each other because like our country's quite small and everyone's come from different cities. So the majority of the dudes that I train with have actually fought each other competitively and like lost and won, and it's quite a like unique roof to be under.
And does that like animosity go out the window once you're kind of back as a team?
I don't think anyone really gives a shit anymore. Like it was just there's no choice, right? Because like the country's small, and if you want to get ahead, you got to fight everybody regardless. And I guess because it's done and dusted, like now they can all train together and like pursue fights internationally. But yeah, it's like we've all sort of grown up together in the UFC, right? Other than Dan was in there all before us. He was doing like his thing and sort of carrying that weight by himself, and then like he came to City Kickboxing, and then we all started drifting into City Kickboxing, and like as we've begun in the UFC, now we've started to grow as a like fight team together. Before that, we're all over the world, man. We're all scattered everywhere and doing different shit. But
yeah, I was reading a bit how kind of you more or less came into MMA after this type of Muay Thai and kickboxing, and it took a bit to kind of get used to that, that style, because it's completely different. I mean, in terms of distance control, I mean, it's a completely different sport.
Yeah. It's like a different world.
Yeah,
it's definitely a different world. It definitely takes some. You don't want to rush into it. Can be pretty detrimental on your psyche if you think you're ready and you get in there and you get mauled. It's not like hugely motivating to jump back in there if you get smashed. If you get smashed, right?
Well, you watch like Khalil Roundtree, and that's why Rogan really got behind him. And Khalil trained at Tiger as well.
Yeah, I remember,
he's been in the Chalong area, but he was one of the fighters that kind of brought the Muay Thai stance a little bit into MMA, and just those vicious like leg kicks.
I think I remember that fight. It was just like out of the blue. He just started like with like a full Thai style, right? But he came to Tiger, and then he adopted that stance, and he had like success in a fight with it. But then, yeah, he's sort of like a little bit different. He's like adapting a bit, right? I don't think that having that like complete purist style is too suited to Muay Thai. I think it worked in that fight, right? But I don't think that would work long term.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you bring wrestling in as an aspect, how are you gonna sprawl out of that?
Right,
it doesn't work. Right?
It definitely leaves you like it limits your ability to move backwards if you're quite flat footed like that, bouncing your lead leg. But I mean, yeah, it worked from once. That's all it has to work for is that night, right? And then now change something else.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think he's changed it up now. I think he has a fight, another one coming up. But
he's doing well, man. He's doing really well. He's a nice guy too.
Yeah, so I've heard, because I'm sure we all have familiar friends. I've talked to Joey. She said, and most of the people here, they have nothing but good things to say about you. They just say, oh, he's the nicest guy. This is a 2-part episode. This is part 1 you're watching. The second part will be released on Thursday at 6 p.m.